Miami has been one of the tougher teams to predict in college football. Let's just look at the projections for the last 4 years before we get to this year's projections. And again, this is based off of our projected record formula. You go to 2021, projected to go 8-4. They went 7-5, so we're pretty close to the projection. Missed it by one game. In 2022, 8-4 is the projection. They went just 5-7, and then in 23, 7-5 was the projection. They did go 7-5, and then last year they beat the projection by 2 games. Projection was 8-4, and they went 10-2. So again, you look at 2022, they were under the projection by 3 games, and then last year over the projection by 2 games. So those 2 years, again, not quite what we expected, but in 21 and 23, they were about what we expected. Again, this projection is not a prediction, it's simply a formula, and it's really all based off of our tier ranking. So here again, this is the schedule, and this is the scale that we use. So Miami is in tier 2. So if you go and look at our tier rankings, Miami is in tier number 2, and that means if they play another tier 2 team, it's in that 40 to 60% range. It's basically a 50-50 game. If they play a three-tier team, it's a 61 to 70% game if that game's at home. But if it's on the road, it does drop down into that 40 to 60% range, and that's kind of the way this works. So you look at the schedule, you don't really see any games on this schedule that Miami can't win, or any games that they're going to be big underdogs in. And so we'll start with actually the easier games. And so with our formula, they actually have 4 of these. They have Bethune-Cookman, South Florida, Stanford, and NC State. And look, I know NC State had a rough year last year. They've got a great coach. They've got a great program. They should bounce back this year, and they'll probably be better. But our formula, our tier rankings were based off of last season, and you could only move up or down one tier based off of returning production, transfer portal additions, things like that. NC State actually lost some key players as well. So they are down there pretty low, same spot as Stanford, and then you got Bethune-Cookman and South Florida. So based off of our formula, again, Miami, you feel good about these 4 games. You feel like Miami should be able to take care of business in all 4 of these games, and when we do our formula at the end, these will all be counted as wins. So 4 wins that you can, I wouldn't say guaranteed wins, but 4 wins that you're expecting to get if you're a Miami fan. And then you've got Florida State and Syracuse. Florida State on the road. Again, Florida State was at the bottom. They were in the very lowest tier last year. They were in tier number 6. And so we did move them up to tier 5 just because of the additions that they got this year. Expect them to be better, but we can't move them up any higher. And even though this game's on the road, still Miami, with our formula, has a great shot at winning. Also with those bye weeks on each side of that game, you feel pretty good. But it's a rivalry. You never know. And then you got Syracuse in the blue as well. I know how the game went last year, but still, with our formula, that one comes out in the blue, which means Miami's probably going to be double-digit favorites in these 2 games. I would say probably right there around 10. And then we go to the games where they should be favored, but they're not going to be favored by a ton. So Louisville is 1 tier below Miami. They're in tier number 3. Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh are in tier 4, but those games are on the road. That's why they wind up in the purple. So yeah, Miami should be favored in these games. Again, I look at Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh right there at the end of the season. Both of those games on the road. Those 2 games worry me if I'm a Miami fan. But I do think Miami will be favored in these 3 matchups. And then that leaves Notre Dame, Florida, and SMU. And these are really the 50-50 games. Florida is in tier 2, right there with Miami. Notre Dame is in tier number 1. And, some people are going to say, well, look at what happened with Miami and Florida last year. Well, Florida was a different team late in the year. They got a lot better, and I think this should be a much more competitive game this year. But yeah, that's a 50-50 game based off of our formula. Notre Dame is in tier number 1, but that game's at home for Miami, so it's on the road for Notre Dame. Obviously, that makes that one a 50-50 game. I think Notre Dame's probably going to be favored, but not by a ton. And then SMU is in tier number 3. That game's on the road. That's why it is in the white. It's a 50-50 game. And really, those 3 games, I don't know that Miami wins all of these other games. You look at Louisville, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh. I could definitely see them tripping up and getting upset in one of those games. But it really is going to come down to these 3 games: Notre Dame, Florida, SMU. Can they go out and win 2 out of 3 of those games? If they can, I think the playoff it's a very real possibility. But if you lose 2 of those, I think it's going to be tough because, again, with all these other games, there's a really good chance that they trip up somewhere. That's just the way it goes in college football. So what's the projection? Well, for Miami, the projection is 9-3. So, again, that's, basically look at Notre Dame, Florida, SMU, Louisville, Virginia Tech, and Pittsburgh. You look at those 6 games, odds would say they're probably going to win 3 or 4 of those, and if they win 4, then you get to 10-2, and that is absolutely possible with this schedule. But 9-3 might be a little bit more likely, and even Florida State and Syracuse, you could possibly trip up and get upset in one of those games. So again, when you average it all out, you get a 9-3 projection for Miami in 2025.